Welcome back, riders. Today I will be going over my winners of 2024. Sorry it took me so long to get this video out, but it's nice to get this off my plate right before the off season concludes. If you didn't watch last year's video, I don't consider something to be a winner just because it was good. Rather, I look for things that exceeded expectations, or maybe I rewrote something and it was considerably better than I remembered. This list is not limited to just roller coasters, and anything is on the table. Some of them are even more lighthearted. In no particular order, let's jump into the list. Let's kick it off with the first winner I had during the year when I happened to find myself down in Florida at the same time Country Bear Jamboree was closing for a significant revamp at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom. Now, let me preface by saying I am never really interested in doing any musicals or theater shows at any amusement park, let alone Disney. But given I had never seen Country Bear Jamboree in all my years of going to Disney World, coupled with the facts I was hanging out with many people who truly cared, and I was in the area for closing day, I was like, sure, why not? So there was a group of 10 of us or so, and we got in line 3 to 4 hours before park close because majority of the group, including myself, didn't want to wait around for the very last showing ever. The line was roughly 45 minutes or so, so we did that, and eventually we made it into the show. Let me tell you guys, this was so much fun. Everybody in the theater was clapping and stomping and singing along. It was such a great atmosphere for an attraction that was kinda closing forever. I had no idea what was going on, but everybody around me made it a great time. However, something I was not aware of at the time is that the main animatronic, the Master of Ceremonies Henry, was broken for the entire show. I've been told that normally they would stop the show over something like that, but because it was the last day ever for this attraction and the crowd was pretty riled up, they just let the show go on. However, after that show, the show I witnessed, they decided to not do any more shows, at least for the time being, because of that broken animatronic. And eventually, it just never reopened for the rest of the night. People waited hours outside for it to reopen and pay their respects, and it never did. So not only was the show lively and a great time on its own, but the first time I ever saw Country Bear Jamboree was the last show ever, at least in that current iteration it was in. Pretty poetic. Moving over to the other side of the country, we have Legoland California as a whole. This was my first ever time at any Legoland park, and while I was only there for an hour and I didn't even get to do a full lap around the park, I was pretty impressed. I loved all the Lego sets. I thought the park was extremely clean. I thought the park was naturally beautiful, and I was pretty impressed with the station and pre-lift on Dragon. I'd love to get back to this park or try any of the other Legoland parks and actually take some time to soak everything in. Fans or friends of the channel might know that one of my favorite flat rides out there is the Mondial Top Scan. However, in 2024 I rode 3 of them: Soul Spin at Knott's Berry Farm, Electro Spin at Carowinds, and Shockwave at Canada's Wonderland. And I was surprised that after riding each of them, I much preferred Soul Spin at Knott's Berry Farm. I believe Soul Spin has the best program out of the 3 and the best location out of them. Plus, it has custom audio to go alongside the cycle. While I had a lot of fun on Electrospin and Shockwave, 2024 proved to me that Soul Spin is considerably better. Sticking in California for one last winter, we have our nearly perfect day at Disneyland Resort. Me and Roller Coaster Insider Cam literally spent an entire day at Disneyland. We were on resort for roughly 17 and a half hours and managed to do just about everything across both parks. Incredicoaster and Haunted Mansion were down for refurbishment, but from the rides that were available, the only one we missed that I would consider major was Spider-Man, which even then, out of the major rides, Spider-Man's definitely lower on the totem pole. We got 29 cumulative rides, including re-rides on some of the best ones, and even spent some time doing smaller ones like Pinocchio and Snow White. It was an incredibly exhausting day, but one I will never forget. Moving away from my off-season parks, a big winner I got very fortunate with was being one of the few people that got to experience Top Thrill 2 at Cedar Point in 2024. McLovin and his wife were nice enough to gift me one of their Coaster Mania 2023 keychains that allowed me entry into one of the Top Thrill 2 previews, and I successfully was able to snag one ride in the front row, too. It was such a rush, and I'm dying to get back on it. But for now, I'll just appreciate that I was able to ride it before it shut down for the season. If you watched my losers video from last year, you might recall that I was not that thrilled with my Memorial Day weekend experience at Six Flags Over Georgia. The ride lineup was and is great, but pretty much everything else regarding staff and how the park was being ran was really grinding my gears. Well, I ended up back there again for this past Memorial Day weekend, and I am happy to report that things were considerably better. No negative interactions with employees, two trains on Goliath, ride operations as a whole were better, and more. I had a much more enjoyable experience this time around, and with the recent investment and statements made by the new merged company, this looks like it could be the beginning of something really good for the park going forward. This past year for Memorial Day weekend, I also looped in Carowinds, and my experience on Boo Blasters on Boo Hill was shocking. Phil, aka Thrills Have a Beard, he told us to give Carowinds' version of Boo Blasters a try since it was the best out of the three. I was not expecting that much going in since the bar is set pretty low between the Kings Island and Canada's Wonderlands installations, but I was blown away. It was obvious that Carowinds' version had received a significant refurbishment, and the ride experience is just leaps and bounds better than the other two. This version has guns that work, targets that are responsive and easy to hit. The other effects, such as lights and fog, those were great too. I thought it was exceptional, and I really hope the other two receive a project just like this one. Moving from a dark ride to a flat ride, I thought I would give a quick shout out to Texas Starflyer Galveston Pleasure Pier. Funtime Starflyers can still be a bit freaky for me, especially the taller ones. While the Texas Starflyer isn't that tall, it's extra freaky because it's located on a pier. It really feels like you're just going to be slinged into the water at any moment. And for me, that's about as nervous as I get riding anything these days. Staying in Texas for another winter, this one being the infamous Roller Coaster Rodeo event at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. I had never been to the park beforehand, so getting my first experience at the park alongside the fantastic event was a blast. Jeffrey Siebert and company put on a fantastic event. Tons of food, drinks, freebies, tours, lift walks, exclusive ride time, and more for a really good price, too. The only problem I had with the event was the heat, which obviously, besides hosting the event at a different time of year, they can't do anything to control that. Everything else was fantastic, and I'm dying to go back. Somewhat tied into Roller Coaster Rodeo, but I'm going to throw two water park exclusive ride times in as a winner. If you know me, you know I am not a water park guy. But when I had no other choice during Hollywood Nights or Roller Coaster Rodeo, I still found myself having a great time at the water parks there. Hurricane Harbor San Antonio was a little more chill with one water coaster and a more tame wave pool, but it was still nice being able to have good conversation with friends. Splash and Safari was a lot more thrilling with both three water coasters and an insane wave pool. The wave pool was a workout and a half, yet more fun than I'd ever imagined having in a water park. Still not a water park guy, but both experiences were a fun time. This winter ties together Holiday World and Six Flags Fiesta Texas yet again, as 2024 was the first year I dabbled into the 3-point challenges inside amusement parks. If you did not know, I'm a big basketball guy, but I'm not anything special as I have the skill set of a center and a 6'2" frame. But this year I was challenged twice at Hollywood and once at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. And I am happy to report that I went undefeated, never lost. I even took home an Indiana Hoosier basketball. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Rip my wallet though. Moving on to the parks I frequent the most, we have my ex home park of Six Flags St. Louis, who I am especially happy with because I discovered they have one of my favorite foods ever, cheese curds. But it's not just the fact they have them, it's the fact that they are good, plain for me because I'm basic, and included with the meal plan as a snack. For comparison, at my current home park of Six Flags Great America, they just introduced cheese curds into the park this past season, but theirs are spicy. They don't have a plain option, and I don't do spicy. And theirs are a meal on the meal plan, not a snack. So for me, that's a massive win for Six Flags St. Louis in my book. And going forward, getting cheese curds there is one of the things I look forward to most when I visit. Speaking of Six Flags Great America, I have three winners from the park, which admittedly I could have grouped together to just do one winner, but I wanted 25 losers and 25 winners, so here we are with three separate entries. Let's start with a pretty simple one, that being X Flight returning its own music this year. This was something I actually never heard in real life up until this past season, but man, I was digging it. I definitely spent more time writing X Flight this season because of the music. It really sets the mood. Next up from the same park were the operations at Superman Ultimate Flight. The crew was fantastic this year. I caught them full on sprinting between rows sometimes, resulting in fantastic dispatch times significantly better than years past. It's especially nice because that means less time stuck in the flying position on the brake run. I almost rolled into the station multiple times. Because of this, I also showed Superman more love this year than in years past. Last one from the home park, and I saved the best for last. I was absolutely floored with the mid season transformation of Batman the Ride. I have a whole video dedicated to this. Feel free to check it out in the card above, or the link will be in the description to see all the effects for yourself. But overall, what a massive W. I feel like a broken record mentioning it to everyone, and I still get giddy thinking about getting back on it soon for all those lights and the fog and the music. It's great. If you know me, then you know I love Kings Island. That's why when the season was wrapping up in October, I was sad I only visited 4 days out of the year up until that point, for roughly only 2 days worth of park time. Plus, my last visit was all the way back in the end of May, so it had been over 4 months since I last visited. Talk about playing the world's smallest violin. But that's why I took it upon myself to go to Kings Island for an entire weekend of haunt. I'm not talking about just visiting as I pleased on a Friday and Saturday and Sunday. No, I'm talking about opening and closing each day, plus early entry on Saturday and Sunday. I was there for every single second of operation that entire weekend. 76 cumulative rides. It was a great weekend at one of my favorite places on planet Earth, and somewhat made up for the unintentional neglect I gave the park over the summer. Now we move on to the Europe portion of the winners list. And let's go with a couple of coasters that exceeded expectations at each UK park I went to, starting with Thorpe Park. Stealth took me by surprise. While I am still taking Max Force's launch and maybe even Accelerator, Stealth's launch is no slouch. Definitely one of the best in the world. But it's everything else for Stealth that surprised me and the reason why it's a winner this year. Intense positive G's pulling into the top hat, good airtime over the top hat, and more airtime on the camelback brakes, plus a little theming with the launch sequence. The other and bigger surprise at Thorpe was Saw the Ride. I thought this was going to be a whatever, just another Gersau or Eurofighter. But no, this one was dope. The theming and layout before the lift is great. Plus you have a surprise I won't spoil that took me by surprise. And then the layout after the lift is quite a powerhouse. Great main drop with an even better mid-course drop due to no trimming. plus a wicked airtime hill and a dive loop and an overbank. Big winner in my books. The next park is Alton Towers, where I also have a duo of coasters for different reasons. Rita is like the other two winners from Thorpe, where it exceeded my expectations. It's far from perfect, it's short, and it has a dud or two in the layout, but for a coaster that I never really hear anyone say they liked, I really liked it. The launch is solid, the turn after the launch is forceful, the pacing is good overall, and it has a couple pops of airtime in there. Plus, it has similar theming to Stealth with the launch sequence. This was a sleeper hit for sure. The other winner I picked from Alton Towers is the Smiler. Smiler wasn't really any better or worse than what I was expecting from a ride layout perspective, but I'll tell you what, the reason I am listing it as a winner is because of the overall package. The theming is absolutely fantastic. The IMA score, you guys know I love my music. The IMA score sets the tone. It's demented, it's mesmerizing. I was totally vibing with it hard. I'm not ashamed to say I throw on the songs every now and then on Spotify. I can't imagine what it was like before they dialed back all the theming, because as it stands right now, I loved it in a admittedly sickeningly way. The last park from the UK was Pleasure Beach Resort, aka Blackpool Pleasure Beach, where I had a trio of supporting coasters that exceeded expectations. One was Revolution, my first ever aero shuttle loop. Sitting in the front of the train, that backwards drop is an absolutely legendary moment that I was not expecting at all. 2. Avalanche was an absolutely crazy experience for a bobsled coaster. The other bobsleds I have been on were mostly tame, but Avalanche makes up for its lack of length by having the craziest 10 seconds of any bobsled I have been on. The ending is absolutely bonkers and taught me that bobsled coasters can somehow have airtime. Who would have known? And then number 3 is Grand National. I rode this twice, once on each side, and it's weird because I hated my first ride, but I loved my second ride. It's unhinged, not made for the faint of heart. The last winner for my Europe trip this past year covers the trip as a whole, and that is the fact that I did not miss many credits, nor did I miss anything substantial. I only missed 2 credits out of 51 that were available on the trip. The first one was Octonauts Roller Coaster Adventure at Alton Towers, which was the smallest coaster in the UK, so I'm definitely more than okay with that being the only one I missed there. The second was a little more notable, but nothing to be upset over, that being Devil's Loop at Legendia. I say noteworthy because I've never been on a coaster made by Socket, I think that's how you say it, and it would have been cool to experience one, especially since this one had a backwards row. But at the end of the day, I'm fairly confident it was not going to be near the top of my rankings, and the floor for this coaster was indeed rather low because who knows how bad it might have been. But that's back to back years for not missing anything in Europe that I'm upset about missing, and for me, that's a massive win. Moving on to more generalized and grouped winners back in the States, let's start with some coasters that redeemed themselves given a second chance. Both Black Diamond at Knoebels and Vortex at Carowinds were roller coasters I rode once each time years ago, and I absolutely hated. 2 of my least favorite roller coasters ever. Black Diamond was so loud, plus it's amplified because you're in a box, so it gave me an absolutely awful, nasty headache. And then Vortex was just way too rough for me. Well, this year I ended up back at both parks and I was feeling generous, so I gave each coaster a second chance and they both redeemed themselves. I did not get a headache on Black Diamond this time and I was able to appreciate what it was, while having a couple more years of experience riding stand-up coasters and learning what position to ride them in turned Vortex from awful to just fine. I always try to see the good in things, and I'm pretty happy that both coasters have some kind of redeeming factor now. Let's quickly go over 5 new credits from the United States that surprised me the most. One was Boardwalk Bullet at Kima Boardwalk. I've heard great things about this coaster, but I was not expecting to thoroughly enjoy my 10 ride marathon as much as I did. I was expecting to be satisfied with 2 rides, but I ended up being not able to get enough. 2 was Talon at Dorney Park. It's hard to take Talon seriously when it's the butt of so many jokes within the community thanks to Jen, but I was pleasantly surprised with how much of a good ride it actually is. It is a perfect mix of being graceful, forceful, floaty, and smooth. 3 was Wildcat's Revenge at Hershey Park. Consider me in the camp of people that were starting to see all the RMCs blend together and get a tiny bit repetitive, unoriginal, and stale. Wildcat's Revenge and Joe Draves absolutely threw a wrench into that, and it was such a nice breath of fresh air from RMC. 4 was Aquaman Power Wave at Six Flags Over Texas. You know I hate water rides, so it must be something special if I willingly ride it twice. The launches have some kick, and there is solid airtime in there. And last but not least, what I consider to be my biggest surprise out of my new credits for this year and one of the biggest winners of the year, Mamba at Worlds of Fun. I knew they reprogrammed the ride, but wow, this is just leaps and bounds better than the traditional Morgan Hypers. I'd be hard pressed to find many more roller coasters I had more fun on this year than Mamba. Uncontainable laughter nearly the entire ride. Similar but different group of 5 here. Let's talk about American re-rides that outperformed their previous rides the most. One is Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. If you recall, I had Mako as a loser in last year's losers video. It's safe to say that across my 2024 rides, it has redeemed itself and maybe 2023 was just a fluke. 2 was Thunderhead at Dollywood. The rumors are true. The retracking has been fantastic. That combined with the fact that I had not been on it since 2018, and it's back near the top of my GCI rankings. 3 was Shivering Timbers. Now, don't get too excited. I still don't think it's elite, but I considered my rides in 2024 to be considerably better than any of my rides in 2015, 2022, or 2023. 4 was Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. I walked away from the park in both 2022 and 2023 with Behemoth being my favorite coaster in the park. But that was not the case in 2024. Leviathan was running fantastic for my visit this year. And 5 was Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England. I was fully expecting Wicked Cyclone to take some kind of hit in my rankings, as it was one of the first RMCs I rode and I had not been on it since 2016. I was quite surprised that it more or less held its ranking after all this time. This coaster is a powerhouse and absolutely fantastic. My second to last winner is the fact that I was able to give Tiger Terror a proper send-off before its eventual demise. Once I learned it was closing, I went to Safariland as soon as possible to get what I thought were going to be my last 2 rides ever on it. I filmed the video, and the next day after I uploaded it, I received an email from a higher up at Safariland giving me all the details and the hookups. I ended up visiting Safariland 3 more times after that, 2 of them in 2024 and 1 of them in 2025, where they were kind enough to let me and my friends ride as much as we pleased. In total, I have 23 rides, 21 of which were in 2024 or 2025, and I'm super fortunate to have gotten these opportunities because it legitimately is a fun roller coaster and it will be missed. Last but not least, I saved the biggest winner for last, and it's even somewhat related to Tiger Terror, but this is the fact that I rode many attractions in 2024 that ended up closing for good. Now, to be transparent, we have learned about many of these closures within 2025, so I guess that's one good reason why I procrastinated 3 months to make this video, but I digress. I legitimately do think I got a bit lucky with the amount of now closed attractions that I rode in 2024. But of course, there was a very large pool to choose from this year, but whatever. Let's go over every now closed attraction I experienced in 2024. I did want to give a shout out to Kumba. Not officially closed as of right now, but the whole situation has been awfully dark and murky, and I would not be shocked if it has already given its last ride, unfortunately. For Disney, I already talked about Country Bear Jamboree, but in that same vein, I also rode Test Track before it went down for its major overhaul, and Big Thunder Mountain Railroad before its major refurbishment. One that went a little under the radar was Scream Weaver at Carowinds. I specifically wrote it because Schwarzkopf Enterprises are becoming rarer and rarer by the year. So you can say that was a smart move on my part, and I called that one. How about an entire amusement park? I was fortunate enough to visit Gillian's Wonderland Pier before it closed its doors for good after nearly 94 years. I somehow got on both sides a Kid Flash at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. Thank you, Jeffrey Siebert. I picked up my first and last Intamin Swiss Bob with Lava Bora at Six Flags Over Texas. Took flight with Nighthawk at Carowinds for the last time. Felt the sting of Scorpion at Busch Gardens Tampa Bay for the final time. For whatever reason, SeaWorld San Antonio replaced their Zero Force with a Zero Force. I guess I'll take the two separate credits for that. And who can forget the fan favorite Time Warp at Canada's Wonderland? I subjected myself to the cage one last time in 2024. But of course, if you're catching my drift, I think you all know what I saved for last, and this one is more of a somber one. Of course, I'm talking about Kinda Ka. Luckily, I wrote it in the summer before any of the rumors started swirling around, so I didn't feel the need to go there in November with everyone else. I'm definitely grateful I got that opportunity. But looking back, I am just shocked with how many rides I rode in 2024 that ended up closing, especially since most of them were not known ahead of time. You can look at this as a loser, but for me, I am considering it a winner since I am fortunate to have gotten one last spin on these attractions. And that is going to do it for this video. Feel free to let me know in the comments below any of your own personal winners during the 2024 season, if you have not forgotten them by now since that was over 3 months ago. Sorry about that again. If you like this video, feel free to check out my 2023 losers video, which can be found in the upper right hand corner now or in the description below. Thank you for checking out the video and see you all next time. Push down, pull up, exit to the right. Hope you enjoyed the video and go have your greatest day yet. Choo choo, bye.